Okay, it's a sunshiny but very cold day outside. It's, well, very cold for Texas anyway. Right now we're still in the upper 30s, lower 40s today, but the sun is shining and it's nice and toasty warm in the house. The wood stove is going, so I'm going to take advantage of that wood stove and make some hamburger soup today. It's hamburger soup. Sometimes we call it garbage soup, and I think there's actually already a video out there that I've done on it, but we're going to do it again. And I'm going to make some kefir biscuits with it, or kefir biscuits with it tonight, which are kind of like buttermilk biscuits, but instead of using buttermilk, I use kefir because sometimes we get overrun with it. So anyway, we're going to start with the soup. What I did is I chopped half an onion and 2 cloves of garlic. And I just put a pound of ground beef into my cast iron thing on the stove, and we're going to get that going. Brown it all up. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to brown this up, and right now that's all that I have in here until I brown it up. As I go along, I might decide to add other flavorings, but I don't do a whole lot of flavorings in there because I'm going to probably use, I usually use beef stock, but I have some venison stock that is actually older than the beef stock, so I think I might go ahead and use the venison stock on it, which is very flavorful too. So we'll go from there, and we might add some, tarragon since it is a beef. I don't know. Like I said, we'll just have to see how it tastes once we get it all browned up and get the stock added in and let it simmer together and those flavors meld for a while. And then we'll add in the rest that goes into the garbage soup. Also, what you're going to need though, other than the garlic and the onions, is we use like a tomato, okra, and corn mix, and sometimes we use just a green bean vegetable mix, but I really like it with the okra in it. So if you can get it with the okra, if not, if you've got some dried okra separate, which I do happen to have some dried okra also, I might do that. But tomatoes give it that nice zing, so make sure you put in at least, I usually use 2 cans of tomatoes. So usually 2 jars of stock, 2 cans of tomatoes, or jars of tomatoes if you're jarring your own. And then, like I said, then a mixture of vegetables, how you like them. But I like it with the okra in there. But if you don't like okra, use a mix that doesn't have okra in there. But like I said, the things that you really need in there to make it the right hamburger soup is the tomatoes. And like I said, then we'll go for and potatoes. You'll need potatoes, and the number of potatoes depends on how potatoey you want it and how starchy your potatoes are and so forth. So I've got some dried. I'm going to use up some of those because I already opened up that jar and I want to go ahead and use them up. And then they're home dried. And then I will probably add some fresh after I get the dried nice and going if it's not enough. But I'll just kind of check it because, we dice them up kind of small so they cook fast. So it's not a big deal to, add some fresh in there. Okay, so the ground beef, onions, and garlic are nice and brown. The onions are translucent, so I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 jars of venison stock. Clarify, that is 2 pints of the stock or 1 quart. Okay, so nice sizzling sound. Oops, sorry. Here we go. And we're going to let that simmer for a while, and then later we'll add in the tomatoes. If you have them separately, do the tomatoes, and if you have it mixed in like where it's the tomatoes, okra, and corn, then you can do that all at once. You might want to wait a little bit longer on it if you're going to do it that way. And if you have dehydrated potatoes, you can add them in at any point. They won't take that long to rehydrate. Maybe 30, 45 minutes. It just depends on how dry you got them. And just FYI, if you have all dehydrated vegetables, this is the perfect soup for it. I mean, like I said, just let it slow cook and let those flavors all simmer together. The wood stove is not going real hot right now, which is perfect because, oh my goodness, it's 80 degrees in the house right now. And the stove is at about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And so you'll see it's really just cold's going right now, and that's just the kind of way we want it right now. So it's just going to make a nice simmer. Okay, so I went ahead and added in a jar of the tomatoes, and now I went and I got the rest of the jar of my dehydrated potatoes. I've got them in a marinara jar, but see? So I'm just going to go ahead and put those in, and this has been simmering. Oh goodness, it's almost 1 o'clock, so I just let the broth and the meat and the onions simmer for about 2 hours already, maybe 3. You know me, I'm never keeping time of anything, so I'm going to put those in there, and probably didn't need to do them yet, but it was just a small bit, so I'm going to go ahead and let them go. And I can always put it up on the trivet if it seems like they're cooking too fast. So now I'm just going to put the lid back on, let it simmer some more. We'll put the rest of the vegetables in later. Okay, so it's been simmering for a good 3 hours. I checked the potatoes, and the potatoes look good. Now, put in the other can of tomatoes after that. And now I'm going to kick up the heat so I can get some biscuits going, because I kind of let the fire just go so it could just simmer. But these potatoes are nice and tender. Can you see that? Yeah, nice and tender. Perfect. So, but I'm going to add some more potatoes because we like lots of potatoes. And that way it's kind of more of a stew, I think, than a soup. But, oh, it tastes scrumptious. I didn't even add anything else yet. Oh, no, I take that back. As in seasonings, I should say. I didn't add anything else. But I did add in some mixed veggies. You see, green beans and stuff like that. And the other jar of tomatoes. So we'll go from there. Got dark in here. Okay, so I'm just going to peel and kind of dice up 3 more potatoes, and I think that should do us just fine, because the other one was probably equivalent to 2 or 3 potatoes, maybe 3, because when they're dehydrated sometimes it's a little hard to tell. But you know how much potato you like, and you know if you like it thicker or thinner. And like I said, by putting in those dehydrated ones, it sucks up some of the juice to rehydrate it. So it's another good way to kind of thicken it if you want to. And then again, you can always add a little bit more liquid if you want to. That's what's nice about cooking at home. You can make it however you want to make it. I could add some tarragon or margarine, but when I tasted it, and I will taste it again a few minutes before I'm ready to plate, but from what I tasted already, I don't think I'll add anything to it. It tasted good just like it was. I didn't even put any salt in it, but I think that's because I canned up those tomatoes with some salt in them. So they probably got plenty of salt out of that. Seems fine to me. All right, so I'm going to do this. You don't need to watch this boring part, and I'll add them in, and then we'll get started on the biscuits. So I don't know if you can see, but I'm dicing them pretty small here. There we go. Cook fast. Okay, for the biscuits, we're going to need 2 cups of flour, which I already put in my little bowl here. We're going to need 3 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 3 tablespoons of shortening. I use 1 tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of good old lard. Sorry for weight-conscious people, but it's just what makes it best. And did I say a 1/2 teaspoon of salt? That's it. So let me get all my ingredients together and we'll get to making them. Okay, so we have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I've got a 1 teaspoon measuring thing, so we're just going to guesstimate it. I don't feel like picking out 15 different ones. Oh, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. That's the one that I always forget. This recipe calls for baking soda. I don't know that I need it so much, but it calls for it, so I use it. But with the kefir in there, and we're going to use kefir instead of milk, which it is a milk kefir. We're not using water kefir, just to be sure about that, clear about that, I should say. And 3 teaspoons of baking powder. So we're going to put all the dry ingredients in at one time. 2 and 3. Okay, so that's that for the dry ingredients. So now all we need is 3 tablespoons of shortening, and we're going to cut the shortening into the dried ingredients. I'm mixing the dry ingredients around because you can mix them all you want while they're dry, but once they are wet, you want to be careful not to overmix them, because then you get, you know, biscuits that are like Hucky Pucks instead. Okay, so I'm going to get my lard measured out and my butter, and I'm sure my clothes is already showing. I end up usually wearing a good portion of my ingredients here. Okay, so, and there's easier ways to do this. Everybody has a different way, but I'm just going to do the hands-on method. So 1 tablespoon. Get together the 2nd tablespoon. And this was lard that had come in a one of those wax paper and cardboard containers. It was, but it's the lard that doesn't have, it's not hydrogenated, so I put it into a jar and stuck it in the fridge to keep it good longer. Okay, so that'll do that. And then we need 1 tablespoon of butter, and if it's a little over a tablespoon, it's not going to hurt anything, so we're going to go a little bit over a tablespoon. And I cut it into little chunks. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to blend it in, crumble it. We're going to blend it in until it looks like pea size. Okay, so let's get going on that. And this is my dough cutter here, and just mix it in and around. And like I said, instead of buttermilk, we're going to use a cup of the kefir, because I've just got so much of it right now. I really need to use some, and there's not enough smoothie making in the world. I guess I could cut out all the other meals and we could just eat smoothies, but I don't know how that would fly with the boys. I'm not even sure if that would fly with me as much as I like them. So, once we have it crumbly, so it's like pea size, it's not quite there yet. See, still big pieces sticking in the cutter. Can you see that? There we go. You want to be careful because you want to make sure it stays cold, because that is the key to good fluffy biscuits that rise. You have to make sure your butter, well, the butter needs to stay cold. You don't want it to melt, but the lard will keep it until you actually, but I make sure my lard is cold too, so like I said, it's been in the fridge. So now there we go. Let's see, butter chunks are like pea size, so that's what we're looking for. So now at this point we can mix in our cup of kefir. Okay, so hubby's just home from work. Now we're gonna just add in this milk, and then we're going to mix it, and then we're gonna turn it out onto, I've already got my little pad down. Try to keep from making some mess. Doesn't work so well for me usually. Okay, so there's that. And let me check here. we're going to knead it for about 30 minutes, and we're going to bake it in a 425 oven. Or if you're doing it on the wood stove like I am, then I'm just going to do it in my frying pan. And we're just, this is, and I said 30 seconds, right? Not 30 minutes on the kneading, because that would really be bad biscuits. Very bad biscuits. Okay, so I'm just cutting it, getting it all together. Getting the dry stuff wet, and then I'm going to turn it out. Like I said, I bet you, I haven't tried it. I thought about trying it this time, but not tonight. I just wanted some decent biscuits. But I bet you with the kefir, we could probably cut that baking powder down quite a bit. Because kefir, you know, bubbles up, and it's losing a good portion of its nutritional value because we're heating it over the recommended amount. Kefir is best when it's not heated over, I think 170 degrees is what it is, but I'm not positive on that. I'd have to double check that. Okay, we're going to turn it out and knead it. Okay, so now since we're going to get real hands-on here, I put on the trusty gloves. There we go. And that's really not going to need a whole lot more kneading than what I just did in the bowl there, instead of turning it out, but we'll go ahead and take it out. So So, and it says to roll it out. I usually just press it out. It's good enough. All right, now we're just going to cut them. All right, and I'm going to put my frying pan on the stove. Get it hot. Need a little, and then I'm going to just drop these in there once I get the rest of them cut. I'm going to rework this, and oh, they're just fine. For those people that worry about it, they'll be just fine. Okay, so we're just going to press these, and aren't those some nice looking biscuits already? Well, now we could press them out and make them smaller, but why would we want to do that? Okay, so just make 2 more biscuits, because you can make them thinner and then you get 10 biscuits out of it. I just got 8, so that's good enough for good. Oh, I missed some here. Oh, there we go. Good deal. Put them in the frying pan. Okay, I moved the soup onto the trivet because I had to kick up the heat on the stove in order to get the pan hot enough for the biscuits. So now the pan is hot enough for the biscuits. And we're just going to drop in the biscuits. And then I've also got the lid heating, so we'll have a hot lid that we're going to stick on top of it. Oops. Moving away from the biscuits. This is almost in a way what you'd call like a fried biscuit. But all right, so now we're going to put the lid on. We'll check them in about 10 minutes. All right, there we go. And we'll check it in just a few minutes. Well, not just a few, about 10. Okay, and this is what happens when your brother comes to visit and starts talking to you, and you don't check on the biscuits until you smell them. But you see how nice they rose. So they'll be all right. We can just cut the bottoms off A little dark. Still edible. And there is the soup in the finished state. Good, hearty, and filling. And there's the last 2 biscuits. How was the soup?
Good.
No answer. He's too busy eating.
Good.
He didn't have soup.
We had biscuits.
He had biscuits.
This is good too.
He had one of the least burnt of the biscuits.
Show me the Alaskan white biscuit.